Good morning. My name is James Wester. Again, I'm an analyst with Yankee Group as well as a founding editor for Mobile Payments Today, and I am an avowed payments geek. Yes, that's a thing. And so I am actually very excited to be joined by two very, very smart people to talk about payments. I've got Mike Fenley. Mike is the, make sure I get it right, Vice President and CTO of Hosted Solutions for NCR. And we have Patrick Gauthier, Head of Emerging Services for PayPal's Enterprise Solutions. Now, one of the things that I think is most fascinating to me as we move forward in mobile payments and mobile commerce is the idea that something that was very, very old, and Eric showed that great slide of somebody 100 years ago, and it looks very much the same as you would see in a store now. But the idea that relationship between a consumer and a merchant is now becoming, well, you used a word when we spoke a couple of weeks ago, it's virtualized. It's no longer something that you do face to face. And what's great about having these two gentlemen up here is we have NCR, which you don't get more sort of merchant-centric than that, National Cash Register, 170 years, basically the company that gave us the cash register. So we have the merchant perspective, and then we have PayPal sort of on the consumer side. So just to sort of talk about what you mentioned when we were talking about this, about the virtualized merchant, can you kind of explain what that means, at least from NCR's perspective?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for the first question. The three megatrends that we're following in terms of our mobile and our web-based solutions, which are collectively hosted solutions, the three megatrends are virtualization, big data, and mobility. And so what we mean by virtualization is essentially abstracting the user interface away from any one point. So there's no such thing as a point of sale. The transaction begins when the consumer has the intent to buy, and it goes through the buying process, and it goes through the paying process, and it ends when the consumer takes a survey and makes a recommendation. And so it's virtualizing the point of sale into wherever the consumer wants to engage that experience. So that's what we refer to by virtualization.
Okay, and then on the consumer side, PayPal has a very similar idea, but you guys call it the connected consumer. So can you kind of explain what that means then on the consumer side?
You know, normally you want for a good panel to have people that disagree, but the fact is I fundamentally agree with Mike. Big data, which is about deep understanding of the consumer, matters enormously. Virtualization, which is about providing a uniform or consistent experience across all the many touch points, and all of that, of course, being enabled by mobile. And by mobile, we don't just mean the phone, but also the many form factors, including some that are less obvious. I mean, your Tesla Model S is just one gigantic point of sale. You know, it's a 17-inch iPad fundamentally. So from a consumer perspective, you know, what we observe is the shopping journey has profoundly changed over the last 5 years. Plenty of data, plenty of studies on that. You know, one in Australia that kind of looked at the zigs and the zags in between the exploration all the way to the commitment and the different channels. Many people were now referring to what was the shopping journey as the shopping pretzel or the shopping cycle. I'll just use one example of a retailer that I met about 12 months ago in the UK. It's the head of a whole food type grocery, and they had just introduced what in the UK they refer to as click and collect. So buy online, pick up in store. And what they observed was a dramatic shift. So if you're a retailer or grocer, you see people come into your store a little less than 2 times per week. So you have about 1.7, 1.8 opportunities to do something to enrich the shopping experience. This retailer, when they launched Click and Collect, observed that they were getting 12 touch points per week with their consumers. That they started at home, they opened a shopping cart, with a particular delivery window about 1 week before, and they used a shopping cart almost like a dynamic list, adding stuff, removing stuff. And they did it from their PC at home, from their PC at work, hopefully during the tea break, and also on their mobile, on their way to and from. And so those 12 touch points totally transformed the way that retailer was thinking of the consumer experience, but also the things they needed to do to support that experience. It totally transforms your supply chain management, your yield management, the way you want to deploy your personnel in stores, even the way you lay out your stores, because you now have a much better understanding of what people want to buy, when they make the decision to buy, what they're interested in, you can service the consumer in a much better way, right? And I think this is at the core of the trends that Mike was highlighting. There are these monumental opportunity to service the consumer, save them time in hurried life, save them money at times when there's a lot of uncertainty, economic uncertainty, strengthen the personalization of the experience so that there's emotional gratification, not feeling like a number. All of these are really important in terms of what the trends that Mike referred to, what they mean for the consumer. And for us, it's encapsulated in what we refer to as connected commerce, right?
Okay, so be a little contentious here then. I've spoken with a lot of merchants. I speak to a lot of retailers, and one actually, it's interesting you say there's an opportunity. I talked to a retailer who said every time somebody comes to me and sells me an opportunity, I know that it's an expense. So, Mike, asking you a question about this, you are providing that point of sale terminal. There are a whole lot of other players that are involved in making that transaction go from that point of sale all the way through. If I'm a merchant and NCR comes in and says, I've got an opportunity for you. I'm hearing that as a merchant, okay, you're trying to sell me something. How do I make sure that what I'm getting from you is the thing that's going to be, foolproof and future-proof? And how do I know that it works with all those other things? I mean, it's one thing to say I'm going to take a tablet and stick it on my mom and pop coffee shop counter. What about if I've got 50 locations in the tri-state region and 4,000 employees and everything else? What would you tell that retailer about what you're proposing and about what this connected commerce virtualized merchant means?
It's a big question.
Big question.
Okay,
big
question. Let's see what I can do with it. So what I would say is that we've all observed over the last 20 years a series of trends in technology. The biggest change that happened in retail going back about 20 years was, okay, now we're all going to use PCs. And then it was touch screens, and then it was Windows, and then it was the internet, and then it was tablets. And so it's a pretty clear succession of technology planks, if you will, that make up this kind of a roadmap. And so if you're a merchant making that buying decision now and you were presented with an NCR opportunity, then that opportunity probably looks a lot from a functional perspective like what you had in the past, but it includes something related to those new planks. So it's got the mobility, or it's got the connectivity, or the big data aspect of new technology applied to it. However, the big change that you would not have seen in the past is that we no longer believe that we can foresee the future. And what I mean by that is we can all project trends, we can all forecast what's coming, and to a certain extent, but we believe that technology is changing so rapidly because of big data, because of the ability to learn from the past in real time and apply that to making decisions. And because of this whole category of applications, which we would call consumer productivity, right? These are brand new things that didn't exist before. Fast data, the idea of fast data, and making decisions in a split second based off information gathered from a wide area around you. These things are happening so quickly that our philosophy is to protect the investment of the customer, not by the solution in the past might have been overpowering it, right? So buy more memory than you need, or buy more registers than you need, or buy a processor that's more powerful than you need. Our solution right now is to say the product that you're buying is actually open enough to support all the integrations to whatever that future brings. It's this idea that the technology is expanding. It's not more limited into the future. It's expanding. And we want to make sure that when you are buying a piece of technology, not only does it get you that kind of baseline of reliable and safe and secure solutions, but that it's open enough to support whatever comes down the pike, because we can't see beyond the kind of the next consumer evolution. We want to make sure we support it. We want to stay open to it, but we don't want to be the ones predicting the wrong thing. And sort of like the saying goes, being wrong 8 times out of 5. Right. So
Mike, if I can add one thing
Sure.
here, my experience of retailers, and PayPal, we deal a lot with retailers as well, is they're not saying, oh, we don't want this new opportunity. We're constantly getting bombarded with the issue of how do we fight the monster from Seattle, and I'm not talking about Microsoft. And because there's so many things that are changing in the consumer behavior, the notion of showrooming is real. It impacts dramatically the profitability of a retailer. It forces them to change not just their stores, but their logistics and how they think of anything from merchandising to advertising, to promotion, to pricing, and so on. And so they are literally coming out and saying there is an avalanche of change coming. Help us with the change from a very store-centric, hardware-centric to a much more holistic approach, from the chain down to the store, and that is very, very service-oriented. And the profound change is to go towards something service-oriented. And what Mike was describing is an instantiation of that.
You guys have both used the phrase big data a couple of times here. And we hear over and over when we talk about mobile commerce that it's not about the transaction. Nobody goes shopping so that they can pull out a card and say, I've gone shopping. It's something else. So we talk about big data, and we know that the real benefit is the data. Now let's take off the merchant hat and put on the consumer side. As a consumer, why would I want to think that merchants are providing me, or why would I want to think that I want to hand over my data, my personal private information, all of that stuff to a merchant? Shouldn't I be a little concerned about privacy, security, all of those things that, or is that completely overblown too, to consumers not even really care? Either one of you, if you want to start, that would be great.
Sure, absolutely. The short answer is delight. When you use longitudinal data, meaning data over a period of time, over a series of experiences, use longitudinal data to provide a consumer with a suggestion, with a recommendation that feels personal, then that takes away all of the notion that you might have had of it being creepy or being privacy invading or of it being uncanny. And instead it turns it into a personal recognition. I'll give you an example is in the music space, the Pandora type solutions, where you provide one song and it makes a radio station out of it. What's going on there? Well, Pandora is observing all the songs that millions of people like, and it's saying, if you like this one song, it's probably true that you'll like this other one based on all this history of other people. We're doing exactly that kind of thing with some really interesting products like wines, like dinner entrees. Being able to provide that sort of recommendation to a consumer where you're really helping them out. And if you make a recommendation for something that consumer then actually likes, then they become a subscriber to that capability. They become a subscriber to that personal knowledge of themselves. It's not so that it can be shared, it's so that the merchant can do a better job serving the consumer. And if that's done well, then it'll overcome all of the downsides of did it interrupt me? Did it bother me occasionally with something I didn't like? Is that an advertisement from the merchant? All of those things will become, for the consumer, much more personalized and contextual to what they're after. And that is what will lead to this consumer productivity aspect of the solution. And that's what will basically take retail, we think, to a new level.
As a way to answer this, how many in this room have heard the following? Oh, the mobile wallet, it's great because you can have payment and coupons and points all in your mobile. Be honest, raise your hand. And of those who've heard this, how often did it sound stale to you as a consumer? So I rest my point, right? The industry is trying to shove into a new form factor some methods of interacting with the consumers that were modern in the 70s. Coupons and loyalty points. What the consumers are looking for is a much more personalized experience. When that is delivered from people they trust, they provide enormous amounts of data to make that happen. You cite Pandora. Look, Facebook, for heaven's sake. I mean, if there's privacy or change around the dynamics around privacy related to Facebook, it's pretty obvious. And Facebook, may have been a time when I was interacting with my friends. It's much more today. And so, in as much as we are able to anticipate the needs that consumers have and help them fulfill that need, then we are in a place where the key pro quo, I'm providing you information so that you can help me, is absolutely clear. Where it gets into the zone where the consumer is saying, wait a minute, it's when you start to do quote, quote, demand generation, right? Which is code for, I'm going to shove things down your mobile, your email, your this, your that, whether you like it or not, because I think you may, 0.1% of you may respond. So if you deal with the consumer with respect, if you think of what their needs are, if you really ingrain your strategy in this, then there is absolutely an opportunity, not just an opportunity, but a necessity to use big data, because that's the only way that you create deep familiarity with the consumer insights. And you help them, and you help the merchant connect as a consequence.
But I guess my question is, if you're a big retailer, you have the budget to do that. You can probably come up with something like that. But for smaller, and I'm not talking about the corner mom and pop. There are some very big companies that have a lot of different stores, but the idea of trying to build something that allows you to communicate with the consumer, that's outside your budget. You're going to have to go with other. Or while you're shaking your head, are you saying it?
Oh yeah, we have a large part of our business, for example, in hospitality, that's all about small to medium chains, and we offer those customers. Granted, they're not tailored, they're not customized versions, but we offer those customers many of the hosted solutions that we offer to the chains of 1,000 or more, and so over time we see these solutions, whether it's I'll give you an example. Fast data is a category of application. It's like big data, which is a concept, except fast data means I'm getting recommendations of big data to you quickly, and so that you can act on them. So we have a fast data application that is available for single restaurant operators, and it requires a tremendous amount of infrastructure working in real time. A big investment on our part, and we make it available as a service to that small retailer, and we have thousands of them that have signed up. They become addicted to it because they can see, no matter where they are in the world, they can see their sales in real time and call a restaurant and say, hey, what's going on? Why did you just give away that beer? So it's a super powerful service, and I think it's the kind of thing that technology, through Moore's Law or whatever you want to call it, but technology is allowing these things to be delivered at a much better price point than you might think was necessary.
But if I'm a merchant and I've gone with a service like that, or I'm doing something like an MCX or something, do I really want to be giving my data away to potential competitors as well? Isn't there sort of a threat that, yeah, I'm going to have this service and it's going to provide this aggregated data, and I'm actually contributing to a pool of data that's going to be used against me?
Once upon a time, the banks fell that way. And then they created what is known as credit bureaus. And they realized that by pooling data, they actually could manage collectively their business with more efficacy. And so I think the same will happen. There's no doubt, I've met retailers who are very nervous about their data and so do not want to have a race to the bottom, with empower my competitor to fight me and then vice versa. I've also met with retailers saying, if the right structure business model was created, we'd be interested in a data exchange, right? And so, why is that? Because they do have lots of data. They don't necessarily have lots of information because they're not necessarily structured their IT systems to extract information out of data. Not so long ago, one of the top 10 retailer in the US was still selling snow shovels in winter in Phoenix, Arizona. Why? Because that's what the standard assortment of a store said. Right? And they had the information that told them that there's not a lot of snow in Phoenix. So they've not yet structured a lot of their big IT, legacy IT, to extract information about consumer behavior. It's mostly about managing the logistics. They know they have to change. They know those changes are challenging, require a lot of not just technology changes, but business processes change, people change, the way they interact with some of their partners and so on. So for the larger ones, it's going to take time, For the smaller ones, they have no other choice. If they know that if they don't, they will be they won't be relevant anymore because somebody will be providing a better service with more consumer insights, right? And so I think we're in the midst of this transformation with it, like everything, like any period like this, there are fears and hopes that comes along with it. We're in this industry because we're full of hope, and certainly anticipate that as you connect and as you enable those new experiences, fantastic things happen. I mean, listen to consumer research, and I spend a lot of time listening to focus group. It's fascinating what people are telling us they're able to do today that they couldn't do 2, 3, 5 years ago, right? And those are opportunities indeed for the retailer to see their cost, their return on marketing investment just skyrocket, because right now it's not great. To see loyalty as in repeat patronage increase, to be able to really adapt what they have on their shelf to the evolution of trend, to not constantly have to get rid of old inventory and so on. All of those are fantastic opportunities to take friction out of commerce for both the retailer and the consumer.
Excellent. So we actually have a few minutes left, and I thought I would open it up to the audience to see if there's anybody who has any questions as well for the panelists. And I'm going to have a very hard time actually seeing anybody raise a hand. Okay. So I have lots of more questions, so I'm not worried about that. Because we now think we know where we're going. So the big question then is, if we think we know where we're going, and I'll throw this to you first, Mike. If you are in the space, in the retail space, the commerce space, whatever, what do I need to do at this point? What's the, what are the things that...
What's the right play?
Yeah.
Yeah, to me, the right answer to that question is actually to cooperate. And so it wouldn't have been the case 10 years ago. 10 years ago, you would build the best possible monolithic solution and go to market as a best of breed in that category, whatever category it is that you do. That's not true anymore. The answer now is to join the ecosystem, is to cooperate, is to figure out which part of the system you provide and how it bolts into the parts that other people are providing, because it's absolutely imperative from the consumer's perspective that things move really, really, really fast. With these brand new categories of software being created. 20 years ago we created spreadsheets and word processing. Well, now we're creating consumer productivity applications and we're creating fast data applications, and these are brand new things that are being, the categories that are being created by the idea of mobility and virtualization. And so it's hard to say who owns which part of the space. If we or if somebody in the audience is out there in this ecosystem, my recommendation is figure out what you're best at and how you interconnect with all those other players, because the dust is far from settled on what's gonna occur. I'm in conversations every week where either the marketing department or the finance office is coming to the IT group saying, please spend more money on this. That hasn't happened in my career. That's never been true, right? The finance guys coming in saying, we got to do this certain project on payments, or marketing saying, we've got to have this mobile or this web or this consumer. It's crazy, and we again, dust hasn't settled. We got to figure out where it's going. But there are plenty of pieces, whether you're something as simple as a loyalty program provider, or you're an application builder, a mobile app builder, or you're just a piece of middleware. There's something that you're really good at. Figure that out and tie into the ecosystem around you in a way that gets more of your smaller pieces rather than fewer of your large pieces.
I find it amazing, actually, that people even know where the payments group is now. For many, many years, if you were in the payments group, nobody even really knew where you were.
Right.
Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah.
What are your recommendations?
Payments conferences are hip again, which is
I know,
extraordinary.
it's amazing.
Right?
I've actually used the word payments and
So, I think I'll make a slight difference. Let's say the head of the retailer is the bottom, right? Think about the top 200 brands, retail brands in the US account for roughly half of retail spending. So there's, due to that concentration, there's some different dynamics. It's actually easier to change when you're smaller, right? Probably one of the biggest challenges that somebody, I'm sure, in Walmart is thinking about is the 16 million square feet of stores that they have, outsides of cities, and the social transformations where people saying, do I want to go there? Do I want to spend the time? Do I want? So if I'm a large retailer right now, what I would do is I would experiment, right? create concept stores, create pop-up stores. Use this to have low media experimentation, and you can do that, to Mike's point, by partnering with a ton of people that now, the architectures are open enough, you can deploy services and test them and learn from them and see what the consumers tell you. I think now, at a time of profound change, is really not the time to, frankly, create big monolithic solution. It's probably not the time to waste a lot of investment dollars on things like EMV. I mean, EMV was created in the 80s in Europe. It's probably a little obsolete, just a little, as a technology. Unless anybody of you want to buy a PC-AT nowadays with a 46 processor, and then EMV may be a little obsolete. So, forego those big investments on a past model and focus your energy and your creativity on really learning very fast. And the only way to practically learn is to actually create real life experimentation. It's fascinating what you can learn by observing consumers in this time where they have all these tools to their hand, where they're finding them, whether you push them or not, and whether they're finding new ways to use them. And when you do that, the insights that you will derive will have profound implication and profound benefits to your business.
Excellent. Well, I see we're actually out of time, and I just want to say thank you very much to Mike and Patrick, and I would recommend that if you see them walking around, take the time, talk to them. They have a wealth of information and knowledge, and I'm sure they're going to be happy to share that with anybody who has any questions. And just want to say thank you very much, and I appreciate your time, and thank you.